So, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here with us live or watching the replay because today we have a topic that we really haven't talked a lot about, but is like super critical for our kids to be happy and successful. So, I think we often think about self determination or life after high school, and that's like a far years away, but we don't sometimes understand that even with our young kids, we want to help them develop those self determination skills. And we want them to have choices, not only choices in school, choices at home, but thinking about what they want their life to be after school. And person centered planning is a process that is an excellent tool when you're looking for ways to have your child's voice be heard and also to develop a circle of support. So the plan that you develop actually gets implemented. And I'm just thrilled today because we have a guest with us, Sandra, and I was going to ask you to make sure I knew how to pronounce your name, and I didn't. So is it McElwee?
McElwee, and nobody ever pronounces it right. So
McElwee. Okay. And you might know Sandra as being Sean's mother. Sean was one of the actors and star of the show Born This Way. And we might even have a secret appearance from Sean at the end. So stay tuned. And you might not know that Sandra is the author of many books, and they all are about her son, Sean, and his story. And Sandra is also a independent facilitator in the state of California. So she's going to be sharing with us the process that they use in California for funding and what it looks like. But I also want you to know that even if you're from another state, your state has waivers to pay for different processes. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But keep your mind open to like, this is something that would be really helpful for my child. Get to know a little bit about the process, and then we'll talk some more details. So, Sandra, would you like to say anything else, like about your wonderful trip to Peru, or just what you do every day?
one thing that's been great about Sean's participation in the self-determination program is we've been able to hire his own staff. And before we relied on agency staff, which sometimes showed up and sometimes didn't. And because of that, because we are confident in our staff, and if somebody needs a day off, they trade with each other and really handle it. We were able to go on a 14-day trip to Peru and not have to worry about anything because they are all trained and they know what they're doing, and had every contingency covered that was needed. So yeah, I always say, Sean's independent, but so am I.
Yes, yes. And that's a good feeling, right? To know that you trust the people that are supporting him and that they'll be able to cover things. So yeah, that's great. I mean, and yeah, and then I'm sure that also helps Sean feel like my mom and dad trust me, they know it will be okay, so that I'm sure gives him a sense of pride too.
Yes, absolutely. He likes making his own decisions and his own choices, but he's supervised, so they are safe choices.
Right, right. And Lauren is with us and she says, I love that. And Cheryl's here and she says, hey, from Pennsylvania. So, yeah, keep your comments and questions coming. Sandra has just a few slides to kind of go over the process, but then we'll be open for more discussion and questions. So, let's bring up your slides and add them here.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to do a quick review of the California Self-Determination Program. I have a YouTube channel that has a more in-depth presentation for anybody in California who may need it, but most of your viewers are other places too. So Self-determination is a voluntary program. It's through our regional center system in California, which is kind of like DDS in other states. There's a DDS and then a regional center, but anyway, it's other states would know it as DDS, or the Department of Developmental Services. But it's a voluntary program that provides participants with a budget that they can use to purchase services and supports they need to implement. I'm so sorry. We will have a dog chorus anytime Amazon appears on my street. So anyway, they can use the funds to purchase the services and supports they need to implement their person-centered plan goals and their individual program plan goals. There's 5 principles of self-determination: freedom, authority, support, responsibility, and confirmation. Each participant in self-determination has an individual budget to help buy their services and supports, or hire their staff, hire vendors. And there's many people who can work with your child or adult to achieve their goals in life. They don't have to be vendored services through the regional center system. And so the individual budget is the mechanism for which you have the money to use for their plan. Initially, it's based on the amount that was spent for services in the previous 12 months, but the budget can change if needs change, or through the person-centered planning process, an unmet need is identified. And I have very few people who don't have unmet needs that have been identified. But they do require you access generic resources first. Our regional center and our Department of Developmental Disabilities federally is a payer of last resort. So like if insurance could cover something, then insurance has to pay. If schools would cover something, then they rely on the school to do that. And the model is gives your child or adult the flexibility, the freedom, and the options. It's individualized for that person. And the great thing is I have some clients who use nursing services. Well, now they can use nursing agencies that aren't vendored with the regional center, that may have more staff than the regional center vendors do. It's really all about choice. And the services can include many things. Identified through the person-centered plan. And person-centered planning is a way to help people with disabilities describe what's going to bring purpose and meaning to their life. And the budget is the amount of money they have to spend on those services. And then, you or whoever's supporting that person controls the budget. Then there is a requirement that there's a financial management services agency that will pay the bills and employees and withhold their taxes and things like that. So that's basically, how the program works. You can take the slides down now if you'd like. And so that's a very brief overview of how the program works.
Well, thank you. And like Sandra said, you can check with your states, because each state has, different names for waivers sometimes and different criteria. So a couple of resources that you could check would be your Parent Training and Information Center, because if they don't provide, like person-centered planning process, they will probably know who in your state does. The other place that you could check is there's a Developmental Disabilities Council in each state. That could be another great resource. Department of Health, in your state. So what you basically need to do is see in your state who provides that kind of funding and service. So Cheryl was saying teaching isolated skills is not helpful without self-determination and self-efficacy, along with someone with some risk-taking.
Absolutely. And allowing our children and adults to take risks and make mistakes. I mean, no, you don't want them to make a mistake like running across the freeway, but calculated mistakes, that's how we learn. We learn best. I actually am doing a presentation later this month on independence, and I've got this great picture of this young man in his recliner, and the recliner has tipped over. And his mother said, I told him over and over again, if he didn't quit pushing back so far, he was going to tip the recliner over. And there he is on the floor, with the back of the recliner on the floor. And guess what? He stopped tipping it back because he learned from his mistake.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, because I think so many times we are in that helping role for our kids, and sometimes we just help too much, right? And allowing our kids to be able to experience lots of typical things and learning from those mistakes, I think it also helps our children feel more confident, like, I can try and I can learn and it's okay. And it's not like we're hovering over them all the time without giving him or her those chances to explore, right? Um, and Trisha, oh, did you have something else, Sandra?
Well, I was just gonna say, when we do everything for our children, all we teach them is that we can do it better than them. And I mean, many times my son did dishes. After he went to bed, I redid the dishes, but I didn't say anything,
Huh?
in front of him, because I really wanted him to have the pride that he did them, even though there was still food left on them.
Yes, yes. And Trisha is from Idaho, and she said, calculated risks. I need to allow that more often. Yeah, I mean, right, there's a safety element.
Teaching laundry, I taught my son for 6 months. I did it. He did it with me. And then, and then I had him do it and I watched, and then he was independent and he watched his cell phone. Now, back in those days, it was a flip phone and it was $60. So it wasn't a huge tragedy, but he was also earning money for his chores. So his natural consequence was he had to buy his next cell phone with his own money. And he never watched his cell phone ever again.
Yes, yes. And those are the things, that we learn best from, right? I mean, that's experience is the best teacher, right? Um, and let's see. Anne Marie is here from South Carolina, and she said we made tipping over the recliner a game. So you
That's
just
funny.
you never know. But Trisha had a question. She said that in Idaho there's such a staffing shortage. Is California the same?
Yes, we've got $3 million, 3 million people in my county. Where are they? Are they all selling drugs? What are they doing for money? I mean, I know, we've extended the free rent and we've extended the unemployment benefits. We need to knock that off because we need those people back out there working. It is a horrible challenge when you can't hire people. Now, the great thing, now the way this is the way it works in California, we get the agency rate as a budget. So let's say an agency is getting $30 an hour to provide job coaching. Well, in the budget, you get the $30 an hour. So now you can hire someone $25 an hour. There's employer costs in there, but for like
Right.
$25 an hour. And it's kind of amazing how many people come out of the woodwork when you're offering more than minimum wage. Um,
Right.
because our kids deserve people who make more than minimum wage.
Right. Right. Yeah, because that's the thing that I see is so much turnover with staff too. Not only the shortage, but the turnover.
It's
Um,
not an easy job. I mean, we need breaks as parents. So so it's not an easy job, and most of the time there's very little training, and many times the agencies will say don't get too involved, don't get in too close.
uh,
Well, we are completely opposite in self-determination. We want them to be involved. We want them to have a personal relationship with my son and my family. And that's made all the difference because then people might quit because they have a better opportunity, or we have some college students that will definitely quit at some point and move on, but they feel horrible when they quit instead of like, I'm not even going to give any notice. I'm just out of
Right.
here.
Right. Yeah, so that relationship, I mean, that is huge, and that's the part that makes such a difference in all of our lives, right? To have those relationships that we can count on. So Tricia says, Idaho providers want workman's comp and benefits, and independent providers, they don't have that. We have lost so many workers, no matter how much I can pay. Yeah, and that's really the
Oh, that's interesting. So in California, we can't hire people without workman's comp, and uh, liability insurance. That's why where the financial management services agencies come in. They provide that, um,
oh,
and we put in. I mean, you can never give somebody a vacation, but we do put paid vacation in the budget. And we also put, in California, you're required to do 24 hours a year of sick leave too. So we have, maybe you need more Californians there in Idaho to change the laws.
yeah.
I know, but there's plenty of us that have moved there.
Yes, yes. Yes, for sure. Well, and that's the thing, right? And it's so interesting that it can vary so much state by state and what the rules are. And it's, I'm really, proficient in the education system. And when my son Dylan became an adult and later started accessing adult services, it's like this is like this whole other ball game, right? I mean, and it's really difficult for parents to know how to go through that adult system. So, as a facilitator, like, if you could describe a little bit of the process of like meeting with the person, the family, like what you do before you actually have the person centered meeting.
Well, we call it a person-centered party because nobody wants another meeting. But I do a lot of pre-planning where I meet with the family, meet with the person, and anybody else who knows them very well. Sometimes it could be a job coach that's been with them. It could be a best friend. It could be a sibling, ABA providers, people who know them well. And I want to learn what their interests are, and we kind of want to narrow down what areas we're going to be attacking in the person-centered party. So I'm going to use my son's as an example because I have permission to talk about him. And and so when we did his person-centered party, we were focused on, where finding him a job, or targeting an area where he would work, that would be interesting to him, and that he could do. And then we had also wanted to talk about, he just moved out, so he was in his own apartment, and we wanted to talk about ways to bring social opportunities to his apartment, to have friends over and things like that. Those were two of the things that we focused on. There was other things too, but because we're only here for an hour, so I'll just stick to those two. So the job one, he had an agency who had gotten him a job at Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store if there's no Trader Joe's where you live. And he was doing the carts in the parking lot, collecting the carts, putting them up, and going and getting the carts and putting them up. And he's really social. And so he hated being in the parking lot away from people. And so they would find him in the store trying to help customers when he hadn't been trained for that. And he was getting written up. He was getting in trouble because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to. So so I told him to quit so he could one day go back there if he wanted to. And because if you're fired, you kind of don't get to go back. And then his agency found him another job doing carts in the parking lot at Home Depot. So same job, different name on a paycheck. But so we're in the person-centered party, and his facilitator went around the room and she asked each person, when you're with Sean, what do you see that gets him really excited about anything? Well, there was a recurring theme where the people said he couldn't walk past a little child without high-fiving them and asking their age and talking to them. And it was determined Sean really likes little kids. And then same thing with dogs. He couldn't walk past a dog without petting them and asking the dog's name. And so the facilitator said to Sean, do you want to work with kids and dogs? And he was like, yes. It's like somebody finally figured it out. Um, and then the next thing we did with his circle of support was, where are there kids and dogs that you don't have to have a teaching credential or a veterinary license to work with? And so we came up with all these birthday party places where kids are. Um, the For the dogs, doggy daycares, dog walking, volunteering at the animal shelter, things like that. And so people knew of different places, and some people knew people who worked at those places. So we'd have an inn. And he ended up getting a job at a trampoline park refereeing dodgeball for little kids, which,
How fun.
who pays to
I
play
know.
dodgeball? That was like my nightmare in school. So he loved that job. Of course, COVID killed it, but and he's really into sports now. He works at a golf course. But these are all things that he was interested in, but he didn't have a way to verbalize. And he didn't know. I mean, he only had this much experience, and he'd never even been to a trampoline park before he started working there.
I know. And see, and that's like the beauty of bringing people together that know the person. And just having permission to like brainstorm and think, like you say, not only think outside the box, but throw the box away, right? And so yeah, those are great stories. And because that's the essence of what we want, is we want our kids to shine and like light up when we say, oh, do you want to work with kids and dogs? It's like, yes. And so that is so, it's just so wonderful when you see that happen. And then after you have that party, and I love that you call it a person-centered party, um, because it does, hopefully it is a social environment, right? And have
Well,
refreshments and
when we were doing them in person, we had food, we had balloons, we had a big poster on the wall that we were drawing on and writing on, and music. Before we started, whatever music the person wanted, if the person needed a break in between. Now everything's virtual. Thank you, COVID.
I know.
But we've got better participation now that everything's virtual. And
Oh,
many times the family will have the closest people to them in their home. So they're all together.
oh,
And
good.
yeah.
Yeah, that works well. That works well. Um, and so Anne Marie was saying, what age do parents need to start researching adult services? So what would you think there?
Well, okay. So most states don't start adult services until your teen is out of school. So if they're going to be exiting at age 18 with a diploma or a certificate of completion, you would want to start researching before that. But if they're going to go to a transition program and be in school until they're 22, or continue in high school for bonus years until they're 22, I would start 2 years before they exit school, whatever the plan is. Talk to parents of adults in your area. If there's any support groups, like we have a Down syndrome support group, they talk to people ahead of you. And I had many mentors, and I could learn from those mentors. I mean, I knew what agency we wanted Sean to go with when he was out of school. Over a year in advance, because of talking to other parents and hearing nightmare stories of some. And this particular one really supported people in the community and wasn't a place where everybody hung out, where a bunch of people with disabilities hung out and basically wasted their day. So that may be perfect for some people, though. Don't get me wrong. Some people may want to go hang out and color and watch TV all day. It's all individualized. But that wasn't our goal for Sean, or
Right.
Sean's goal.
Yes, I know. That's not something he'd be interested either. And I think, like you said, to ask other parents. I know we moved to Idaho when Dylan was, I don't know, 25 or so. Um, and yeah, that was my first thing, is to seek out other parents and say, what's the scoop? Because it is so new. And um and I guess the other option too is not to opt into adult services. I mean, your family may be able to just self-pay for things, and so it's not like an absolute that you need that. But I think for most families, they do need some kind of support outside their current family to provide that. And if you look at, the job coaching and other services like that, that's not something that really parents can go and, do with their child on a job site. So, look, like Sandra said, it's individualized. Where does your child need those supports? And it's going to change over time. And that's why, we have these yearly parties to keep up to date on things. But so the other thing Trisha was saying, she said, I would want to be in the know 2 years before age 18. Tasks will increase in the final year, but definitely be in the know before 18. And that's the thing. In most states, the age of majority is 18. So your child is going to be able to be making decisions. So that's a whole nother show, right? About self-determination and
And
what.
supported decision making.
Yes, yes. So there's all kinds of options, but yeah, and I think for parents of younger kids, you can also tap into the beauty of person-centered parties when your kiddos are younger. I know when Dylan was in fifth grade and going to be transitioning to middle school, we had a map session, which is one type of a person-centered tool, and what was so nice about it is we had staff from the middle school come, but just be observers because they didn't really know Dylan that well, but we wanted them to hear about Dylan. And one of the rules I always have as a facilitator is there needs to be more peers than adults. So we were able to invite Dylan's classmates, and they were able to speak and share and say, oh, we know this about Dylan. And it was so powerful coming from his classmates. And so that's something that you can look at. You can do a person-centered party when your child is younger. We did another one when he was in high school. We did another one when he was auditing college classes. So kind of throughout their life, it's interesting to go back and see. And like you usually do have a big poster or a banner of bulletin board paper or whatever with, the whole process. And Dylan loved taking those, and those were his big wall art in
Oh
his
my
bedroom.
gosh. Yeah, Sean would never let me take his poster off his wall. When he moved, there wasn't a big enough wall. So he has a picture of it on his phone. Well, and he's had another one since then. So he's got a couple of pictures on his phone of his plans. But the
Right.
social part, when he moved into his apartment, you know, now his friends needed to figure out where he was. So it's like, okay, so first we ask him, what do you want? And he goes, I want a pool party. It's like, okay. Then we asked his friends and they go, what about a poker night? And somebody
Right.
else said, what about a Bible study? And so, we were able to come up with things that he could plan with his staff on a regular basis. And when you were saying, sometimes you don't take the adult services, well, sometimes they're not available. I know my
Right.
friends in Texas are on a 10-year wait list.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, somebody has to die before they can
Right.
get moved up on the list. And, so whenever people go to states with no income tax, that's what pays for our services is your income tax. So but I have a friend in Texas. They started a snow cone stand for their son. They only run it during the summer. So, and they basically pay high school students to run it
Huh.
with him. And Blake's Snow Shack. You've probably seen all kinds of publicity. They had a PR firm adopt them basically and do
Huh.
his PR. So he's been, in news and social media and all this stuff for a long time. They're very involved.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so wonderful now too, is just the entrepreneur opportunities that our kids have. And um, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Sean's t-shirt business, and I can put the website up here too.
Sure. So when Sean was on Born This Way, he said some pretty funny things. And we when he was younger, nobody could understand his words. And that was a big misconception. A lot of people thought he's like some rock star and this brilliant person with Down syndrome, and because he could articulate words. Well, when he was 18, for many years, he wanted to be on TV. Glee pretty much did it for him. When he saw Lauren Potter on Glee, he's like, I want to do that. And so I would take him to auditions. And sometimes if I could get him to slow down, you could understand him. But he has oral motor apraxia, verbal apraxia, and a phonological processing disorder because he's deaf in one ear. And he's basically was very difficult to understand when he was younger. And I take him to auditions. Well, the last audition he had, I couldn't understand him. He was talking too fast. He ran his words together. And we're driving home and he goes, I'm going to get that one. And I go, oh, I don't think so. And I pointed out that I couldn't understand him. Well, he wanted this so bad, to be on TV so bad. He said, okay. And he thought for a few minutes and was quiet. He goes, will you help me? And I'm like, yeah, but you can't go, Mom, every time I correct your pronunciation. And ever since he was little, we called it Shawnese, his own language. So, people speak Japanese, they speak Chinese, and Sean spoke Shawnese. We could usually understand what he was saying. So we would translate for people and say, oh, he's saying, what's your name or whatever was going on. So he comes up with some really funny sayings on the show. And then he wrote he dictated, he can't write. He dictated to me a keynote speech that he wanted to do. And so we made a PowerPoint and everything, and it's kind of got a common theme. He says it could happen. So he tells his dream, it could happen, then why people said it wouldn't happen, and then what he did, and then it happens. So that was kind of the theme of it. And then it was that's what faith can do. So we get to the end and he goes, okay, now we need shirts and hats and bags. I'm like, where did that come from? And so I ignored him, and he kept on and on and on. He's very persistent and determined. And I said, okay, finally, I went, okay, let's call my friend who's a graphic artist and find out how to do t-shirts. And we found out there's a thing called print on demand. Because all I'm thinking is I got a garage full of shirts, right? It's like, I don't need a garage full of shirts. And so she tells me, how to set up this business where we don't have to have one piece of inventory at all. And people order it, they print, and this company prints it and ships it. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. So we got some designs made from the funny things he said. And it was Shawnese because it was Sean's language, Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yeah, we've all heard it before. It's not copyrighted. We put it on a shirt. It can happen. Goes on a shirt. That's what faith can do. Went on a shirt. And then, he kept saying funny things. And today, every time you say anything, he'll go, that'd go good on a shirt. Not everything goes good on a shirt, but sometimes he's like got some good ones. So at this moment, he has over 150 designs. And sells them. I mean, people actually order them, and I'm blown away every day with the stuff. And he's got a list of 200 things that we're circulating now around his friends and staff, having them pick 20 so we can narrow it down and get some new designs made.
Oh, isn't that great? And see, and that's the thing. It's like, sometimes our kids ask for different things and we're like, I'm not sure how to make that happen. But I mean, you can reach out to other people, get ideas. And yeah, I just really think that it's I think a way, especially maybe after COVID, we saw so many people launch different kinds of businesses, and being that entrepreneur is something that is really possible for our kids. And yes, they'll need support, and there's all kinds of, business paperwork that somebody can help them with. But to generate those ideas and, you know, be that, I think he calls himself, or are you the dream facilitator? Is
I'm
that?
the chief dream facilitator.
Yes.
He's the president and chief designer.
Yes, yes. And see, that all works, right? It's all so important. And then I wanted to see, Anne Marie was asking, is there any legislation that puts adult services in jeopardy or adult medical? Um, so, Tricia says it's always in jeopardy, right? I mean, the funding is not, it's not something that you can necessarily count on being there years from now. And, I know in Colorado, we had a long waiting list. It's gotten shorter for adult services. Idaho had no waiting list. And it's like amazing to see the difference in depending on where you live.
Well, in California, we were extremely fortunate to have some bulldog mothers in the late 60s basically go to Sacramento, and they probably lived in the Sacramento area. One of these days, I'd like to get their history, but they went to the state capitol and they rode the elevator up and down the elevator every morning with the legislators and said, "You're closing our institutions. We have no services in the community for these people, and we need services." And these are people who had taken their children home, but they were advocating for the people in the institutions whose parents had institutionalized them. And so where are they going to go? What are they going to do? And they found this guy named Lanterman. I don't know. I think Frank Lanterman was one of the legislators, and he took this as his cause, and he wrote the Lanterman Act with input from these mothers, and it makes services in California an entitlement. So there is no wait list. You move here, you're entitled to these services just like somebody who was born here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've been talking to families and other teachers about is, looking at how can we make those systemic changes. And I mean, getting involved at the state level with legislation is one area that can make a huge difference, because otherwise you're back and forth and you're never sure what the budget's going to be. The agencies aren't sure what their budgets are going to be. And it really causes a lot of stress. So, that may be something that you want to check in your state and see if there are, other community people that are also concerned with this and that would help support you and doing something. Because if you can get it passed in the state, then you don't have to keep worrying as much year after year.
Well, and the states do get some federal funding, but the states also fund it. Most states have an ARC.
Right. Yes.
They do lobbying, and they will know who else in your state lobbies for information. Get involved with those organizations and see how you can, put time in for that.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, because there's the national ARC, and then there's state ARCs, and they are usually really knowledgeable about waivers and, services and all those kinds of things. So, sometimes it's hard because parents have to make this phone call and then they get a name and have to make this phone call. But that networking is really the way that you're going to find more answers and get more input from people.
Absolutely. And Google, I mean,
yes,
if you search something, you don't find it, search it a different way, put in different words. It's amazing what can be found. I mean, back in the 90s when the internet was new, that would have been nice to have a little Google.
I know, I know. We were talking about that the other day. It's like, typewriters and whiteout and all that good stuff, and going to the library to research things. You couldn't do that online, right? Um, and then I always tell people, trust and verify, because sometimes the information you find on the internet isn't quite aligned with exactly what is supposed to happen. So you always want to be able to verify that. But yeah, there's a lot that you can find just by doing internet searches. And
Yeah,
Michelle
learn.
is,
Yeah, you
go
really
ahead.
want to learn how to decipher the source. Is it somebody's opinion or is it a law?
Right, right. Oh, exactly. And Michelle's here. Hey, Michelle. And we have like people from every state. Michelle's in Florida, Tamara's here, and Tamara's in Massachusetts. She says there are also many year-long transition to adulthood conferences, symposiums, virtual or in person. Yes, exactly. And Tamara is one that is like so great about finding all kinds of webinars and things. And you know the, the the important thing is, I think, like when Anne Marie was saying, like how soon, what age do you start doing this? You can start when kids are young, but especially I think in middle school and critically in high school, you want to be able to be attending these kinds of conferences. The one resource that I found really helpful is I'm Determined. I don't know if you've seen that, Sandra, but
Yes,
their website is phenomenal, and they have all kinds of valuable transition guides. And what I really like about their transition guides is it talks about self-determination skills, but it's like, for 5 or 6 year olds, what does self-determination look like? So for each different age, they have, now we're developing into this area. So it's something that we can be working with our kids on when they're very young. And we don't have to wait. But as far as finding out the intricacies of adult services or who pays what or how you can get things, that's something probably middle school, high school, because it might be changing, right? And so you want to be able to keep up with that. Um,
absolutely. But yeah, I see Tamara mentioned the conferences. The nice thing is a lot of things are now available online that you can watch things that happened, a month ago, or not even have to physically fly somewhere. You can attend virtually. Um,
yes. Yeah, for sure. And that's made a huge difference, right? So here's the idetermine.org. Thanks, Tamara. Um, and yeah, like I said, you'll just find pages and pages of wonderful resources. And that is like one go to source that you can use, and then kind of branch off from that. But that's a really basic place that I think people can go and use. And so the other thing I thought about too, Sandra, was when you're looking at your person centered parties, like how, and you look at the pre planning that you do and then the actual party and the follow up. So, like, how many hours of your time do you think is involved in that whole process? Because it really is not like a quick IEP meeting.
No. So with the pre-planning, the person-centered party, and then writing up the report, and that includes research. So in my son's case, when he said he wanted to work at party places, well, we got a whole list of party places that were, within a 10-mile radius, and a whole list of doggy daycares. And, so doing the research and putting all of those things in, it's 16 hours is on average.
Okay.
If I have somebody that's really got a lot of goals, or we're writing a plan that's going to last 2 or 3 years. Sometimes it can be a little more, but on average, 16 hours is what I spend from the beginning to the end.
So, yeah, so I think that in itself just shows you the in depth part that happens. And um, it's such a more positive process than the IEP meetings can be a lot of times. And I almost wish that we could, infuse some person-centered planning aspects into IEP meetings. The few times that I've seen that happen, though, I don't know. I think there's a way to do it, but the ones that I've been involved in, it just seemed like it was kind of bastardizing the person-centered planning process. And it was like hard to mesh the two. Um,
The way
you know,
we do it, the person-centered plan is based on the person's strengths, their interests, what's important to them, what's important for them. But we have the unmet needs section, and that's where we pull out all the dirty laundry. And we want to talk about all the positive things about the person in the person-centered plan. But when you're trying to get services, if you say Johnny is happy all the time, but Johnny's really like breaking the windows and he's not really happy all the time. So there's just got to be, and there's subtleties. I always joke that stubborn is on the 21st chromosome for people with Down syndrome. So I just say he's very determined. We just, use the positive word for that and turn it around, but he's very determined to buy a house in Beverly Hills, and that's never going to happen.
No, we don't know that.
We never say never, because you don't know. It could happen. That's Sean's whole thing.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, those big goals that we all have as people, and our kids need to be able to have those big goals too. And you just never know. I joke because when Dylan, I don't know, was 18, he went to a burlesque show and loved it and said, I want to be a burlesque dancer. And he had to wait till he was 21 to take the lessons. And he became a burlesque dancer. And it was not a world I was familiar with. And I often joke that it's like, wow, we should have put this in Dylan's transition plan. How to be a burlesque dancer. So you never know what your kids want to do. And so, yeah, you also have to kind of wonder some of the goals they have. But that's okay.
Good for you for supporting that. I love it. Sean, when he was 11, he says, I want to be a Los Angeles Laker. And I'm like, okay, between your dad being the tallest McElwee alive at 5'8", and the extra 21st chromosome, probably not going to happen. But I didn't say that. I didn't say that's not going to happen. I said, well, people that are that made it to the LA Lakers team, they had to practice basketball a lot. And so he was on the driveway playing basketball every day. He was shooting 3-pointers up from, all over the cul-de-sac. And he's on a basketball team at his gym. And I went and watched his game Monday night. At halfway through the game, there was only 19 points scored. 9 of those points were Sean's. The other 10 points were everybody else, because he's sinking 3-pointers all over the place.
Fun. Look at that. Yeah. So it's like, that's almost as good as playing on the Lakers, right?
It was pretty impressive. And the thing is, this is kind of the beginning of the league. They didn't guard him, because they're like,
right. And guess what?
He's the secret weapon. His team's passing to him all the time,
Isn't that fun? Yeah. And so it's so wonderful when you hear those possibilities for our kids. And sometimes we wonder, when our kids are younger, like, what's their life going to be like as an adult? And it's not
Sean's trying to log on right now. They're having technical difficulties, so
okay.
I'm not sure what that means, but
okay. Yeah, because Sean's going to try and join us via his phone. So cross your fingers that we can that we'll be able to pull him in here and have the man speak about his life himself, right?
Right.
So keep your questions coming. Let us know, do you have another question for Sandra? Or if we get Sean on here, do you have a question that you'd love Sean to address? So let us know. And I'm going to put up Sandra's website. So if you want more information, you can go to empowerpcp.com. And Sandra, do you want to share what's on your website there that people will see?
I have some information about the California Self-Determination Program. I have some YouTube videos linked where I've done an in-depth presentation, talked about the budgets, how a budget versus a spending plan differ. And then I have some case studies with a couple of my clients, discussing their services and what their lives are like now that they're in self-determination versus before they were in self-determination.
So great. Yeah. So that would be some great resources that parents can tap into. And I'll be sending out my newsletter next Tuesday. So I'll put these links in there and some other ones that like link to Sandra's YouTube channel and such. So you can go there and also see videos. So I don't know. Do you think Sean will be able to get on or?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, I see Sean popping on. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Sean.
Are you on your break at lunch at your job?
I am.
Yeah, that's why you're eating.
Yep.
That's okay. So, Sean, your mom has been telling us wonderful things about not only about your t-shirt business, but living in your apartment and, the different jobs that you've had. So she's given us kind of an introduction into what's happening now in your life. But is there any updates? I know so many people loved watching Born This Way and we're so bummed that, it's not still on. But do you have anything that you would like to share? We have a lot of parents and some teachers on here today. Anything that you would like to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. But to my other teachers and everything, I would love to get a job at that teaching job, and I'm really interested.
Sean, why don't you tell them what happened when Born This Way got canceled? What did you decide to do?
I don't know, Mom.
Well, I thought you were going to be devastated, but you immediately turned around and said, okay, I'll do my own
YouTube channel.
And what's your show called?
The Song Show.
There you go.
Well, we'll have to get the link for your. I didn't know you had your own YouTube channel, Sean. Cool.
Own YouTube channel.
Yeah, Sean. I thought for sure he was going to be devastated, and he's like, "All right, I'll just do my own show." Didn't skip a beat. And let's see, I'll find the link here for you.
Okay, good. So, Sean, what do you do now at the golf course? Because your mom was saying you're working at a golf course.
Yes, that's right. But I am at a golf course right now with my job coach Julie.
And what do
Cool.
what do you do there?
Right, I do maintenance.
So you do fitness? Is that what you said?
Fitness, maintenance.
What kind of maintenance?
Maintenance. Okay.
So what do you do?
I do put the signs, talk to customers, and or talk to my friend next to me right now. And yeah, and just living the dream.
Living the dream. I just texted you his YouTube channel on the private
Okay.
chat. So Sean, do you clean stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
And you take out the trash?
Yes, and also there's a new thing I do. It's the pumpkins.
You got to make sure the pumpkins aren't rotten.
Yep.
Awesome. And do you put ice out for the golfers
Oh yes.
so they can have ice in their ice chests?
Yep.
And you refill
Yeah.
drinks.
Oh,
Um,
and Mom, hold that thought. And drinks too.
You
so,
restock.
Restock the drinks.
You have
and
to.
you help in the restaurant a little bit here and there too, right?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
So, do you get to play golf on the same course where you're working? Like, if you're not working, do you go over there to play golf?
Sometimes I do, but sometimes my hitting is really bad.
You're hitting. You're a great golfer. So yeah, what's been really cool is some of the people Sean works with have invited him to play golf, and it's kind of cool because they all get a discount. So
We like that. What about driving golf carts? That would be my son's greatest gift.
Sean's job coach drives his golf cart because you have to have a driver's license to drive a golf
Hello.
cart.
That's so my job coach Julie on camera. Is that okay?
It's up to her.
She can be on camera if she wants.
You want to?
It's okay.
This is Julie.
Hey, Julie.
So Julie is the glue to Sean's staff. She is
All right.
she is fabulous, and we could not survive without her. She's the best hire ever.
That might be a new salt.
Oh, I think it would, and I would make sure Julie wore it. Best hire ever.
I know your mom said you keep coming up with great ideas for more things on a shirt, right?
Yes, and also on like 150 designs on
That's
my
a lot.
website.
Yeah, and I was showing people, I'll put it up again. I was showing people your website so they can go over there and do some shopping, right? I mean, it'd be great for the holidays. They could get all kinds. So besides t-shirts, what else do you have on your website for sale? Other products?
Mom, I got this from here. I got t-shirts, hats, beach blankets, and bags.
Well, you cover it all. And the other thing is, do you want to talk a little bit about your onesie project and the donations you make to little babies?
Yes,
And
absolutely. And that's for new parents. Like to have new parents, like new babies, new opportunity to have that baby care basket. And it's really awesome for all the new parents to be pleased to be the part of the family.
wow, that is so nice. And that reminds me because I know in our local Down syndrome group, we have gift baskets for new families. So I'm going to tell them they should come over and order some onesies because that would be like
They
a
don't have
perfect.
to. In November, so which is only a couple of weeks away, the application will be on Sean's website, and Sean donates the onesies. So $1 from every shirt he sells throughout the year goes to his onesie donation project. And most of the time, we're able to supply a lot of the onesies. I mean, something for every organization that applies. We can't. I mean, some have like 100
Right.
baskets they do a year. We could do part of them. We can't do them all, but we
Right.
offer them the cost because when you order in bulk, they're cheaper if they wanted to purchase the rest, and then
Oh,
it's at cost.
isn't
Um,
that good?
yeah, and Sean, Sean was surprised this year. He was invited to sell shirts at our local Elks Club event. They presented him with $1,000 check for his onesie donation project, so he's going to be able to donate more onesies this year than ever before.
Oh, how exciting, Sean. That is so cool that they donated that money. So I'm going to make sure we pass that because we have several different Down syndrome groups in Idaho, and I can put that in my newsletter so people around the country can know about that. And I'll tell them to look for that in November. Um, So that is awesome. Thank you, Sean, for all the things that you do for other people. That is so cool.
Thank you. And also, I want everyone, plus parents, plus teachers, to buy more shirts. Like, I want to a lot more often because right now it's doing bad right now. Yeah, because I need more people to buy it because um I feel sad to not people to not buy my shirts.
Well, it's that time of year, Sean. It's going to go crazy in about 2 weeks. Everybody buys everything in November for their Christmas. So
Right.
just
I
hang in
know,
there.
I know, but
Well,
I'm just saying that because I want more people to have a new experience to see me.
yes, exactly. And I'll make sure that I put that in my newsletter because that goes out to a lot of people. And so I'll make sure that people know about it. And then also, what about speaking? I think you're also available for speaking to different organizations.
Yes, I agree. Like more speaking engagements, like all over the world. I want to try new areas, new places. I love to try, but I'm gonna try it. I'm up for a challenge, and I'm very easy.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure that I put that in the newsletter also because you have a lot to share and we have a lot to learn from you. And I want to make sure that other families and organizations know that you are available if they're interested in looking at speakers that are self advocates.
Yes, always, ma'am. I can say thank you.
You're welcome. We're at the top of the hour now, Sean, and I know you're just on a break from your job, but is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Is there a tip that you want to give parents to, like make sure that they listen to their children and help their children reach their dreams and their goals?
Yes, I agree with that, and I want all the parents to know about all kids always listen, but it's really good to have the parents to listen because they need to know about the kids to not bully to each other because I want the kids to be nice to each other instead of being mean to each other. That's called being bullied and that's not right. And I want everyone to be included.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Sean. And thanks to your mom for being with us today, too. So, Sandra, do you have any final words that you would like to share with us?
Just listen to your kids, and sometimes what they're saying isn't exactly what they mean. So you've got to really listen a lot to get to where they want to what they're actually saying.
Yes, totally, totally. Well, thank you so much for both of you, Sean. And I'm glad that your break time worked out so you could be with us live. And I want to tell our viewers that in a couple of weeks, our guest is going to be Otto Lana, who is from the San Diego area, who uses typing as a way to communicate. So Otto will be with us in a couple of weeks on Thursday. So until then, I hope that everyone can continue not only advocating for their own child, but also advocating for systemic change. So our kids as students and as adults are always included in our community. So thank you again, and we shall see people in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Thank you
All
for
righty.
having us.
Yes, yes, you guys were wonderful.